Hello and welcome to this appointment viewing prime time every weekday 6 o'clock here on NewsX, where for the past 5 months and 100 hours of getting you voices from now hundreds and hundreds of wealth creators, thinkers, entrepreneurs, people from the creative spaces with one singular purpose. We now need to ideate like a team India on what needs to get done, what's already happened. And more importantly, for you watching back home, some of you might be thinking of your own entrepreneurial dreams. This concept of us looking within to find genius, to find the products and the services that are going to define the lives. The success of all the individuals that you're about to hear from is party to our success, and more importantly, in the larger mind space of this country, and understanding that we are all in this boat together. So let me kick off this telecast, which we do in partnership with Business World. Joining us on the broadcast, Vatsal Dusad, he's co-founder and CEO of Blackboard Radio. Navneet Singh, founder and CEO of Avsar HR Services. Avsar, I'm assuming. Vikas Chaturvedi, CEO of Xanadu Group. Pulkit Sharma, co-founder of Khabari. Ekta Jaju, founder of Organic. And as always, Anurag Batra of Business World, Chairman and Editor-in-Chief, joining us. Anurag ji, set up this conversation for us.
Thank you, Rishabh. The last 7 months have shown that lives and livelihoods are intertwined. We do need to worry about lives. And for that reason, we need to worry about livelihoods. And today we have a panel of people who are creating livelihoods themselves and for other, people. So let me start by asking Navneet Singh. Navneet, how have been the last 7 months for you personally and professionally, and especially for your business? And where do you see your business headed?
To be very honest, sir, last 7 months is a roller coaster ride. Initially, what happens that we are into manpower services, as you know. Initially, it was a completely downwards journey. So our business came to around 50% what our usual business was. But after 2-3 months, again, when e-commerce and Diwali season or festive season approaches, then e-commerce industries started hiring and all the retail industries started hiring. And then somehow we are managing to cope up with the current scenario. And now we understood or we learned how to live with this situation. And somehow we are trying to manage or trying to reach up to the existing level or pre-COVID level in next 1 or 2 months. I'm hoping that we will reach at pre-COVID level in next 1 to 2 months with the help of this festive season. And I'm assuming that lot of customers will go out and shop more and more, so that it will help our economy, our company, and our market to grow back, to bounce back.
And Navneet, what are the trends in recruitment? What has changed in the last 7 months? When you talk to employers and HR heads, what do you hear that is so different from what you heard 7 months back?
Earlier, it was completely different. I mean, we just need to hire people. But what happens due to reverse migration and guest workers or migrant workers move to their hometowns, then suddenly recruitment became one of the most difficult part of any business. Now everyone is focusing more and more towards HR function or recruitment function, which was not the case pre-COVID era. Pre-COVID era recruitment was, I think, or HR was the one of the least important factor for any business. But the most important or significant change I'm seeing in last 7 months, that now recruitment or human resource department is one of the most crucial and important department for any business function. And we are looking for more sustainable kind of manpower, more sustainable kind of resources who can able to work from home, who are agile, who are adaptive to new environment, who are adaptive to new culture. People or HR managers are looking for persons who does not need daily monitoring, who can work by themselves, because no one can micromanage them in home. Majority of us are working from home, so we need people.
What I call they need to move from presenteeism to productivity.
Exactly.
Just being present is not good enough. Because earlier also there was this concept of workers or colleagues reporting to a desk, but that doesn't mean anything. In fact, I've been saying that I'm a great fan of work from anywhere, but I'm not sure productivity of everyone has gone up The people who used to continue to work before COVID are still, they can work from anywhere. They don't need an external. But there are people who wouldn't work before COVID. And COVID has not necessarily made them more productive. Ekta, how has your business changed in the last 7 months? What is the pivot you've taken, and how do you see business over the next few months?
Hi, so I'm from the organic sector. We run a social enterprise and we work with small farmers and grow organic specialty rice and sell. Since we are in the essential food sector, thankfully only like the months where there was complete lockdown, we saw less business. And since then, our business has actually seen growth over last year. The organic sector is actually growing. I think more and more people are becoming very aware about what they eat, about their health. I think that's becoming very important, and the organic food sector is also growing. And so my business is actually doing better than last year, and we're actually growing this year.
That's good to know. Your lovely name, organic. I mean, even if you didn't say, we know that you're in the organic sector. Tell us, if the income of a local producer / farmer was 100 rupees in February or March, where are we in October? Has COVID enhanced his or her income or reduced his or her income?
To be very honest with you, so the group of farmers that I work with in West Bengal, their incomes have been more affected by the cyclone that we had in the state, where they lost all their crop. I think that was more devastating than COVID. Farmers have been one group of people who have actually continued to work, continued to toil, continued to go to their field, and continue to do what they were doing. They need to provide food to us. And I think if we are sitting in our homes and eating comfortably, I think it's because they toiled. So yes, I think their incomes, I don't know if their incomes have changed so much because of COVID, but because of other things, their life has become very difficult.
And the last few weeks in the parliament, there have been a lot of legislation impacting the food sector, the farm and agriculture sector, the Prime Minister's vision of one market, the Prime Minister's vision of farm to fork, the Prime Minister's vision of developing clusters which are known for certain kinds of foods. How do you see that doing for the complete ecosystem, especially for the organic farmers who kind of need help in go-to-market?
So I think we've been discussing it in the parliament only over the last few months, but I think a lot of work has gone into it for many years now. So we've been looking at creating farmer-producer companies, creating farmer collectives who are working with specific commodities. In West Bengal, we've not had APMC restrictions. So we work with the farmer producer company that turned organic, and we procure from them. And I can't tell you how beneficial that is, farmers coming together as collectives, farmers being able to decide what they want to grow, farmers being able to, they negotiate with us saying that, can we have this as a price, and so we will grow this. At the end of the year, coming back saying that this particular rice was profitable, this particular thing was not profitable. And I think it's very important to see farmers talk like that. They're the only group of people who can't say that this was my cost, this is my margin, and this is the price at which I want to sell my product. There is nothing like a quality. They can't come and say that my rice is better than, the farmer next door. I put in more effort. It's nice. Give me a better price. And I think it's time that they were allowed to do that. And I think that has a potential to revolutionize the agriculture space and the farming community, especially the small farming community. This is the only way that they can command a price in the market which is fair. So there is a lot of potential. I think it's very important that it's implemented in a way that it does not impact many groups and many communities. I think implementation is the key. And if we are able to make sure that it's implemented well, it can go a long way.
Thank you so much. We'll come back to you, Ekta. But let me bring in Vatsal. Vatsal, again, you're in a domain that has been impacted by COVID and positively so, if I may say. Tell us how have been the last 7 months and what's your outlook for your own business over the next 6 months?
I think the past 6 to 7 months have been terrific in terms of traction, definitely, since there was like a shock to the economy and the student life in general. And we generally work with students in Tier 2, Tier 3 India. And what we have seen is there's like increased adoption faster than we thought ever would happen, because students in metropolitan have been exposed to certain online digital interventions before as well. But it was a new thing for the Tier 2, Tier 3 students. And a few things have changed clearly. I think from the consumer side, parents have started realizing the efficiency and the transparency in the child's education. Now they can clearly measure what's giving the output and the progress. They can see the quality of teachers who are teaching them, and how the child is impacted by them. And secondly, for the business itself, some cost structures have definitely changed altogether. For example, our team have been totally remote. So like one of the highest cost items, which is rent, has gone away for like hundreds of teachers and salespeople. The workforce has become more distributed. So I think from how the nature of the cost basis itself has changed, consumer mindset has changed for the better, and how we see that happening is that a part of it will sustain. So when schools reopen, hopefully next year, mid-April or June or July, the assumption being that part of it will go back to school, but a part of it will stay, and that itself is a huge share of
there will be some habit change that would have been induced in the last 6 months and will continue over the last next
absolutely.
6 months. And something you are doing by compulsion, you are not necessarily doing by choice. They may or may not stick. Time will tell. But in terms of edutech and overall in terms of education, more than $2 billion have come into education. But the mindset of a lot of entrepreneurs have changed. They first want to make their businesses profitable and then raise money. Then the mindset earlier, where you'd first raise money and think about profitability much later. Tell us, how is your brain working?
So I think a lot of it is also dependent on the market scenario as well. Like 5 years ago, 4 years ago, the market was just beginning. So a lot of investors also wanted to build the market itself. But now a market has certainly matured. So now if entrepreneurs don't think about profitability and the bottom line at the beginning itself, they don't need to make profit at front, but at least the unit economics needs to be profitable. They need to grow profitably. If you don't think about that in the first go, it's hard to get investor money as well. So I think a lot of that is investor sentiment changing, a lot of it is market changing. And I think generally for the market, it's better because it produces healthy competition. If you're just discounting your offering to a large level, then a lot of good entrepreneurs and good businesses die, because it then becomes a battle between two war chest of money. So I think that's a good sentiment which is prevailing now, due to the changing scenario of market, the maturity of the market, changing of the investor sentiment about the sector, and entrepreneurs in general. So I think that's how we think as well. So we're not chasing profitability at year one, but we're definitely chasing unit economic profitability. So at least we don't lose money on it.
That's very heartening, and that's happening across sectors, and all entrepreneurs are saying similar things as you're saying. Vikas, how has your business changed over the last 7 months, and where do you see it headed over the next few months?
Anurag, I represent Xanadu, which operates in the real estate, and we are deeply entrenched in Mumbai market, which is the largest real estate market. To be honest, when the lockdown started, it was very difficult across developers. There was a lot of migration issues, labor was non-existent, so construction came to a complete halt. So couple of initiatives like COVID being recognized as force majeure was one very big initiative by Government of India, so that the delays which are arising out of this situation, developers were provided certain cushion. So regulatory authorities were providing that cushion. Interest rates have come down during this period. So there's a lot of such initiatives that were given. So if I were to look at it from that perspective, we also suffered initially in April and May.
People are not looking at buying homes. I know I started my career in real estate. I know almost every player in your sector, having also a large real estate platform in Realty Plus. And I know every player in your sub-segment. And
yes.
I understand that people were not looking to buy homes. But over the last 3 months, the number of inquiries went up, the number of token money went up, and dare I say the number of conversions went up. I'm aware that the residential real estate market in the affordable segment is seeing a lot of traction, or in the mid-market segment. Give us a sense through numbers where we are headed.
So look, you are absolutely right. April, May, June is when difficulties were there. The second quarter of the first half actually has been quite promising. The real pivot actually came in from the adoption of technology by almost everyone. I think one separate independent department in every real estate company is now developed on the tech. The one critical skill that is now required is digital marketing.
For every business. If you're not tech business, you're underdeveloped. But what I'm asking you, Vikas, is through the number of transactions that you're doing or you're involved with, give us a sense of number. Because I've kept saying it, and I really believe in it, that for the first time, millennials have stayed in a home and would realize the value of owning the place that they spend most time. Because millennials grew up in the shared economy. And the shared economy, I'm not sure exists in the way it existed earlier. So, and also they've saved money. So their families will push them into buying houses. And now the buying season is around. We had the Shara yesterday. So give us a sense through numbers. We know the general scenario. We need specifics from you, Vikas.
So I'll give you the specifics. I was just building up to that. But I think you have absolutely rightly put it across. For us, first half has been better than the last year. Courtesy the second quarter only. The conversions I still won't say are at par with the pre-COVID times. We have helped our clients do about 550 crores of business in first half itself. And this month has been easily the best month that we ever had in October for our 4 years of existence. And it has just begun. The Shara has just gone, but Diwali is there coming. Dhanteras is one big festival that needs to be considered. So we are looking at easily about 700, 800 crores of business in this quarter. Our order book has increased. We are active across 22 sites. We are opening new markets right now.
It tells us that the green shoots of economy are already there. Because we'll come
Yes, it is.
Again, you're in the content in the media space.
Yes.
We just seen growth in consumption, not necessarily growth in revenues. So give us a sense of where your company is headed, what you do for the benefit of our viewers, and how do you see the future?
Sure, Anurag. So at Khabri, we are the fastest growing audio platform in India, and we offer user content around information and knowledge in audio. And the last few months have been very exciting for us in terms of growth. What we have seen in terms of behavior is user being confined to their homes needed more content to consume, and audio gave them that ease of lower bandwidth consumption, and more time that they had their hand was utilized well. In terms of user, we have seen 3.5x jump in the last few months, and in terms of engagement time, we have seen 1.5x growth. Retention itself is up by 1.3x. Also, the exciting part have been that now more and more content creators who were either earlier in jobs now had more time in their hand to pursue their passion or pursue or create content, and hence we have seen a big boom on the content creation side, where more and more creators came up onboarded on the platform, and like almost our creators have jumped by 3x, and they're creating more content. So next few months even looks more exciting, and I think the whole situation have led us into a super growth stage, which we definitely are enjoying right now.
Okay. Let me ask all the entrepreneurs a question that needs to be asked. While the government has done a lot and continues to do a lot, and a lot of people did get the direct benefit of the stimulus. They've been on our show and shared their stories. But tell me, what can be better? What is that one thing on the ground that can be better, that can help everyone, and especially your business? Let me start with Pulkit, you first.
Right, so I think times like these, crisis specifically, are a great time for startups to come forward and build businesses. We have seen in US where how Airbnb and Uber came out of the 2008 crisis, right? So I think this is a great time where entrepreneurs and startups can play a larger role. What I think is super critical now is so government to extend that welcoming hand in terms of working very closely with startups and solving some of the challenges. We have already seen how startup and with technology have changed the face of the finance ecosystem, the education ecosystem now, and I think a lot can be done in even areas like real estate, areas like hospitality. A lot of startups are already there. So I think there needs a closer collaboration and a larger role to be played by startups, and that is something that government should be considering more than what they've done so far.
Vikas Chaturvedi?
Look, for us, Maharashtra government's decision to reduce stamp duties by 3% has been one of the biggest initiatives. It could be extended till for next 12 months and complete waiver of this. Second piece that I would say is the interest component invited by the EMIs, for the second home. If that can be extended, the tax that is limit is 2 lakhs, then that is another initiative that can really bring back a lot of interest from the investors into the real estate. While the stamp duties were reduced, I think ready reckoner rates have been increased slightly. If they can be taken back, those are 2 or 3 initiatives I would definitely.
Thank you so much, Vikas.
Yes.
For being so specific and precise in asking. Like you have a car and you want to go somewhere, put in GPS, go to Bandra Kurla, go to Defense Colony, right? If you say go anywhere, it doesn't happen. So thank you for being specific. What's your input?
So I think government has taken they make an opportunity out of this pandemic in terms of a lot of supply side reforms. They have done a lot of agri reforms and labor reforms. So I would say that's a good opportunity to also extend that to other areas. For example, a lot of MCA issues like how for startups to deal with. Earlier it used to be angel tax. Now there are a bunch of other regarding FDI. So a lot of corporate reforms can be helped, and this opportunity can be taken to solve for them in terms of making it easy for doing business in India. Especially for startups.
Thank you so much, Ekta.
I think I would look at this issue a little differently. I would say that yes, pandemics and such things do offer us an opportunity, but I think they offer us an opportunity to rethink, to really question: is this the way we want to go forward? Do we want to copy the US? Are we looking at just growing our GDP, and so are we looking at measures to just go back to the pre-COVID days? Where our GDP was growing at so and so rate, and can we double that? Is that what we want to do, or do we really want to talk about how do we see our country? How are we looking at solving critical issues? Are we talking about inequity? Are we talking about sustainability? Are we talking about not repeating the mistake of the past? Because if we continue to do things the way we are doing, if business goes on as usual, we will find ourselves in another problem in a few years. And the solution to the problem, if we're not looking at solving the main root cause of it, I think we'll just find ourselves here in another few years and we'll be having similar discussions. I think we really need to start questioning ourselves.
Absolutely, Ekta. We have a lot to do when it comes to attaining these SDG goals. Sustainability needs to happen in a deep way and not just, lip service or mandated by government. And third, less is more is something that we've discovered. So when it comes to the bottom line, we have to look at a bottom line that has people, purpose, and planet in it. We have to factor that in. So you're so right in what you said. Navneet, what is that one thing that can be done which can unlock your business?
At least 2 things I would like to add, sir. One is GST in staffing industry is 18%. So we are into recruitment business where we work to provide jobs to the job seeker, and charging GST 18% is, I think, somehow not acceptable, or it can be minimized at least 5% so that recruitment business can be grown. And number 2, TDS is 2% to 10%, which has been decreased due to in pandemic. But again, TDS 10% for recruitment business, I think it can be lowered down.
Thank you so much, Neeraj. I want to go to Vatsal. Vatsal, education, especially post-pandemic, has not only created equalization, but it has also created a digital divide. When you look at government schools, they don't have devices, they don't have access. So rather than the students getting equal opportunity, a lot of students are getting unequal opportunity. Tell us, how will we bridge the digital divide?
So I think it's pointed out correctly, and there obviously people have issues with low-end devices with their battery issues, their low bandwidth, even they have 1 GB data, but if you do 3 hours of online class, it will just exhaust itself. And a lot of people can't afford. Most middle class families also have at least 1 device only, or it is a very low-end device at home. So these are there. I think 1 or 2 things which needs to be done. Obviously we have to, I think the market itself shape with Jio penetrating more and more and more. They're trying to work on low Android devices as well. But the second thing is that a lot of innovation needs to be put in from our end as well. So, for example, we've done a lot of experiments where we have tried delivering content on the WhatsApp. No new app which is required. There's nothing else is doing. We are also trying to build solutions where multiple children can engage from the same device. And now it's like opening up areas where we didn't think about. So we've never thought about, like, we've always linked one mobile number to one child, but now we're rethinking that approach. We're trying to think, can we have like a slightly bigger device, but 4 children can engage together. They can do a multiplayer game on the screen itself alone. So I think a lot of innovation will be required, and entrepreneurs, as they want to go deeper into market, they will have to solve this issue. And we have started seeing that happening.
Okay, I'm just going to do a small interjection, Vatsal, before we take a break, because we're already running into the halfway mark. But let me just pick on your brain. Can you just, for our viewers watching this broadcast, can you explain to us what you guys do at Blackboard?
So we help Indian students, school students in Tier 2, Tier 3 India to speak better, help them to speak better English. So essentially it's a practice tool, a utility practice tool, where since they don't have a physical environment around them.
Okay, so is it teacher based or is it tech based?
It's a blended model where you have both technology augmented by teachers on the back end.
Okay, so what, the technology works what? I mean, you can hear a pronunciation of a particular sentence or a word which you then repeat after. Do you guys have an algorithm that checks what the person is saying in turn?
Yeah, so it works like how a math practice worksheet works. So how you solve math question.
Yeah.
So similarly, you speak on the application and you get feedback which corrects you
on which words you pronounce right. And what's the uptake for people watching this? Are we seeing people who want to improve their language skills? So you could have begun with English. People like me would probably want to improve their Hindi. Is there an uptake? Is there a scalability here?
Yeah, so since we use technology at the back end to augment the teacher side, so it's this definite technology stack which we are building, where you speak so we are essentially trying to use the smartphone recorder as a language practice tool.
Interesting.
By building the algorithm top of it. So if you just input anything in the recorder itself, it will provide you feedback on how to improve.
Okay, yourself. So I'm curious. Do you think of yourself as a tech firm applying yourself to education, or are you an education firm, applying technology?
No, we have education first. I think we have to solve consumer problems. Technology is a means to solve that.
Okay, very, very interesting. Let me ask the same question to Pulkit. Pulkit, you're, voice-led, low data. We were going through a phase in this country when data was becoming so cheap that big data was the way to go. What is then the logic of what Khabri is trying to do? Is there still a space that is open for audio?
I think while we sitting in Gurgaon and the other tier 1 cities believe that the 4G is out there and we're planning to get into the 5G wave, but I think the reality is very different once you go 100
I think a lot of people in Gurgaon are not getting 4G, so I think it's very realistic.
Right. So while definitely those advancements are happening, but a lot needs to be solved when you talk about the tier 2, tier 3 India. And that is where audio becomes that medium where it can easily deliver content in areas where videos and other mediums cannot reach. I'll tell you an example of, this is a story of Delhi Kendriya Vidyalaya teacher coming to us and telling that half of the students are not able to join the classes because the data is running out, or they have limited device, or it's not supporting all of that. And what is the solution that you can build? And that's where we provide the live audio solution that we have at Khabri, which streams much better.
Okay, explain that. What is it a Zoom call but only audio? Is it a con call? What do you guys put together?
No, what we're doing is we are doing audio streaming there. It's not exactly a call protocol that we have. What we do is it's an audio-based service where there can be a teacher which can go live, and there could be students. And like we used to have on this radio days, that you can take a caller and connect with him. Same way the teacher can, if there's a query, we can ask student to connect live, and then there could be a two-way communication.
Okay, interesting.
That can happen. There's a comment section which goes on live.
But what's the bread and what's the bread and butter? You said that there are uptake of content creators. So are you guys user-generated model? Do you have your own people developing content? Because your name says Khabri, and I've checked you guys out on Facebook. So how much is it news? How much is it information? How much is what?
So we're a combination of information and knowledge right now. News, our total consumption is somewhere around 20%, while other categories include preparation for government jobs, motivation and language preparation, and also soft skills development, right? And in terms of our business model, we have a network of content creators, hence we are UGC led. We don't create our own content. We have a network of 50,000 plus content creators on the platform who are creating these content. The good part is these creators are coming from tier 2, tier 3 towns,
Excellent.
speaking the same language, the same dialect,
Excellent.
which this local user wants to understand. And what we have understood is there's a lot of apprehension for this tier 2, tier 3 guy when they're trying to learn something. If it's someone who is from their town speaking the same language, it becomes a lot more easier for them.
Okay.
And hence there's
Okay.
a
So
great
what's in it for the
engagement that
users? I
happens
mean,
on
do
the
you
platform.
do revenue sharing with them? Do you do how do you make it beneficial for somebody to jump in and become part of your platform?
Right. So there are two things. One is we have a complete level-wise plan for a content creator. We start from a gold level 0 to a level 5, where they get different incentives as they create more content and more meaningful engagement on the platform.
Okay.
At the gold level, they get certain incentives for creating the content. The idea ultimately is that we'll enable these content creators to create their own products,
Okay.
knowledge.
Okay. So quickly for our
information-based
viewers,
products
I mean,
which could be sold on the platform.
do you aspire to be the YouTube of audio? Do you aspire to be Audible? What do you aspire to be?
So I think audio industry is pretty nascent right now, and we don't want to be termed as YouTube for audio. I think there's room for something more than that, where audio can serve as a great medium, which has always done for humanity,
Okay.
and serve knowledge.
Okay, for all of you who thought
I
that-
think,
that-
we would like
that-
to hold our own ground and
Okay, if you
not
can-
really be,
if you
I
can
don't think
please-
there's something that is very, very comparable.
If you can also
because
please run
Spotify
a
is more
radio
of a-
station that's not constantly ads or politicians telling us, that will be useful also. Okay, Ekta, tell us about Organic. I mean, we now know the name and we now you do organic, but what is organic? Do you have some special varieties you focus on? Are they Indian varieties? Are you into this entire organic trend that's coming in from America, or are you an Indian organic pusher?
So we're a social enterprise, and we work in West Bengal, and we work with something which is a specialty of our region. So we work with indigenous varieties of specialty rice. And this could be a black rice, this could be a red rice, this could be a brown rice. And to be very honest with you, yes, a lot of this whole food trend is coming to us from the US. But at the same time, this is also what was traditional to our culture. We did hand pounding of rices. All of these are indigenous land races of our country, right? Black rice is from the eastern northeast. The red rice has been grown in many parts of the country. Govindabhog is one of the most amazing rices that I've had. And I think, of course, while we learn from the West, there is so much traditional food that we have available, which is just amazing.
Okay, you
So we
sold
try
me
to
on the
sort of
theory. Now I'm
promote
trying to get
that.
into the practice of it. I mean, do you guys run your physical stores? Are you mostly online based? When you say social enterprise, what does that mean? Translate that for us.
So we work with small and marginal farmers in West Bengal with the idea that are we able to pay them a fair price for what they are growing? Are they working with us as partners, or are they just working with us as suppliers?
Okay.
When we make a decision, does it include their well-being, or does it just include the top line or the bottom line of the company? So I think a lot of these things would define a social enterprise, but also how do we sell? So we're a B2B company. We supply to other organic companies, exporters in the organic
Okay, so you're
space.
doing the sourcing part and you're making sure the farmers get a fair price and a fair deal. Okay.
Absolutely, we do everything from seed to
Okay.
shelf.
Is it happening in India? Is there a demand for this?
Oh, absolutely. We've only just started exporting. So my company has been growing. We've done a 5x growth in the last couple of years, and it's all been within the country. So definitely the market for organic in the country is definitely growing.
Okay, let's rope in Vikas quickly. Vikas, help us understand when you guys are working in Xanadu, are you physically building the properties? Are you helping other property developers? Are you pooling them together? Yeah, Anurag, go ahead.
Rishabh, they are a what we call a property agent, but they're a new age property service provider, and there are many like these. They're primarily developers. Strength is to be able to source property, to be able to build, but they're like outsourced sales and marketing companies, and they work with developers to be able to sell. So they bring that.
Okay, fascinating. So Vikas, what's the sales pitch right now? What's the big pitch? How are you guys clearing inventory?
Look, our big pitch is you have to put consumer at the center of everything. While Anurag is right, there's a lot of distribution capability which is available in real estate. There are a lot of organized as well as retail distributors, and then there is a developer. What Xanadu does is brings the complete marketing and sales value chain together. which allows the sales velocity and eventually the sales revenues to come in. We work very closely with the financial institutions also, because increasingly they are involved as the monies are not.
Okay, so
coming
what's
out.
working? Because what's working right now? Because
so what is working inherently is that. So internally we call it something called human tech interface. While tech allows you to reach into the consumer, but you need that capability, that human capability, which looks into the eye of consumer and says, you know what, this is a good product and you should buy. And that is the most important thing. So taking the information to the right consumer.
okay, so what's the are we seeing Vikas, are we seeing a real drop in prices? Are you going out to people and say, listen, if you want to buy a house between now and 10 years from now, this is a golden opportunity, don't miss it, or really nothing much has changed?
Look, for 5 years, the prices have been flat. So they have already corrected. There is a limit beyond which developers cannot go down because they have a cost element already involved.
But because if I had to play contrarian to that, and I did work in the real estate sector, and I know the two industries I know really well are real estate and media.
Yes, I'm Anurag.
I'd say to you that if you didn't sell, some of the developers will collapse unless until they're restructured. So rather than having zero revenue, it's better to drop the price and have 80 or 90% revenue and be able to stay alive. What do you have to say to that?
Look, in my mind, pricing is one key element of it, but it is just the 1P of the 4Ps. Unless your product is right, as much price you can drop, it is not going to sell.
Sure, I agree with you.
Unless you place it in front of the right customer, it is not going to sell. So right product, right price, right placement. Okay, eventually all these 4Ps have to come together. What Xanadu does is bring all these 4Ps together, and the final most important piece is the right set of people selling your product. That capability of recruiting from the top management institutes, having a set of people who have worked well in consumer industries who really put consumer at the center, is something which is so institutionalization of finance has led to some of the largest institutions being created. Institution of construction has led to something like L&T getting created. In real estate, the biggest problem is institutionalization of marketing and sales. Particularly seeing it from the main protagonist perspective, which is developer. What Xanadu tries to solve is a developer's problem of getting sales revenues.
Okay, interesting. Well, you are driving the revenue, so you become an important part of the puzzle piece. I need to take a very short break. We already overshot our time. Come back and pick this up with Navneet on the other side. See you in 30 seconds. Welcome back to this telecast. We've been in a fascinating conversation. Just a couple of questions, Navneet, before I hand back to Anurag. Navneet, okay. Now we are seeing edutech going off the block. Anurag mentioned the $2 billion figure. It's most probably a lot more than that, right? Everybody's throwing money into edutech, right? Eventually that has to translate into what you do is hiring people. Now, if I'm out there and I've been sitting at home and I'm going, listen, I want to do a refresher course or a 1-month online course, and I put that on my CV, does that impress you or the people that you are representing?
It depends. It depends on what kind of refresher course you have done, and does that validate our requirement or not. If it's relevant to our requirement, if it has enhanced your skill set, obviously it will help us. And it will help you to get that job. But if it's not related to our skill set or our requirements, then it might not.
So let me rephrase the question, right? In the end, let's say one of the big edtech entrepreneurs, let's say a Byju's, right, is putting together a course curriculum, but they're putting that course curriculum for you to give your exams, right? So in the CV, you don't say I studied in Byju's, you say I cleared my CBSE with this much percentage. That's what matters to you. Now, Are you seeing a development where amongst people who are hiring, they're saying, look, alternative kind of qualifications, alternative exam passing qualifies for a skill set that we recognize?
To be very honest, nothing this sort of anything has come to me or come to us till now. But it might be possible that in future, the way we are moving towards edutech and the way we are moving towards alternate education system, in future it might be possible, but nothing this kind of thing right now.
Okay, so what's the basis? Are you still doing traditional basis of what your education was and what your work ex? This is what matters in a CV right now?
say that only these things matters in a CV, but when we have founders from across the society or across the college, across the institutions, then I won't say that it only matters, but yes, it matters a lot.
So okay, that's that.
currently
Okay,
also.
okay, that matters a lot. Okay, practical question in a difficult circumstance, which is very adapting. What's happening with people who were supposed to be graduating college, are sort of graduating college right now? Are they stuck in limbo? Should they be actively pursuing jobs? Should they wait a year? What should they do?
No, they should be actively pursuing the job. They will get the job because this peak or Diwali season sale or festive season sale will bring back the market, not to exactly pre-COVID level, but I think we will be at pre-COVID level very soon.
Okay.
And they will get the job.
Okay, the reason I'm
If
asking
they
this
have-
question is that is your area flooded by people who have lost jobs, therefore are more experienced, that is completely washing out the people who are just applying, fresh out of college? Or are companies saying, listen, in the cost cutting we're doing, we're getting in more freshers who are cheaper to hire and losing people with 3-4 years experience? How is it panning out?
See, every job has a different kind of requirements. We cannot replace 3-4 years of experience people with a fresher. And for some jobs, we need fresher that cannot be replaced by 3 or 4 or 10 years of experienced people. So every job has its own requirement. No one can replace any other job. Slightly changes can be done, but entirely replacing is not possible.
Okay, quickly before I hand back to last question, how flexible are employers being on the concept of work from home and different city, right? I know I'm being a lot more flexible than it was 6 months ago. You don't have to report to Noida studio or our Okhla studio to sign in. You can start from Bombay, start from Chennai. Is that happening across the board?
It's happening across the board, but there are some exceptions. For example, logistics industry, if you'll take, they cannot work from home. They have to be on the road or in the warehouse or on the soft floor. Manufacturing industry, they cannot work from home. So apart from these kind of industries, everyone is comfortable for work from home, as they have some financial benefits also. They are saving the cost on the rent. On
Okay. So yes, how much of this is becoming? How much is HR recruiting becoming tech enabled? Are you guys running AI algorithms that are matching, the CV to the complete, or is it still human touch?
No, it's a mix of everything. It depends on the role also. For tech role or for the senior level role, we are running AI technology. But for the lower level of profiles, we need to take the interviews face to face. We need to understand what kind of people we are hiring.
Okay.
So it's a mix of everything.
Okay, interesting. Anurag ji, we have about 12 minutes, so back to you.
Thank you, Rishabh. My viewpoint on recruiting, you asked about, availability of a lot of skilled professionals and their advantage vis-a-vis young professionals or millennials. I'll tell you, if I meet an entrepreneur whose idea hasn't worked, I don't think an entrepreneur ever fails. The ideas fail, the projects fail. Entrepreneurs always succeed. They learn, they build something else. So when an entrepreneur comes to me, I put a much more value in him or her and work with them, and they become entrepreneurs in my company. Vis-a-vis professional versus a young entry level, I think it depends on what the culture of your organization is, what sector you're on, what is the CTC of both, and sometimes, both may be very good. So, it will boil down to cultural issues, salary expectations, and sometimes there is pure serendipity at play.
I've not even asked the question of whether salary expectations have gone down this year or not, which would be a lovely question to ask.
I think overall the environment is soft, except Mr. Ambani, who's raised a lot of money, and maybe another 10 companies. I think across the board it continues to be a economy that can do better. Let me now bring in two questions to the fore that we every day bring into the show. One is, when do you see the Indian economy coming back in full bloom? 6 months, 12 months, 18 months? And do qualify your answer, why? And second, what is your top lockdown lesson? What have you learned as an entrepreneur that will hold you in good stead throughout your life? So let me start with Ekta. Ekta, first, when do you think the economy will be back in full bloom?
Definitely, I think once the vaccines are out, and my guess is as good as yours on when they will be out. But no, I think there is a while. I think even when things get back to normal, I think it will be a while before we sort of understand what next and what we can do now. There is a lot of harm that's been done, and to pull things back from there and bring it to a level where they sort of start to seem like normal. I think it's going to be a while. It's not going to be as easy as it may seem. Pumping in money in the economy, things like that can help, but it's like a bubble that we are creating. It will burst, and we'll have to deal with it when that happens. But in terms of what have I learned, I think one of the key lessons that that I've sort of begun to understand is it's important to invest in communities. It's important to invest in people. It's important to invest in the on the ground, because I've realized that that was one thing that we did right, and which is why while a lot of companies found it difficult to manage their businesses at this time, I think because of the strong ground connect that we had, we would continue to operate and work as like these were normal times really. And I think investing in people, I think I would say let's look at wealth creation for everyone and not just for the top management. I think some of these things I have seen as being very useful in my organization, and I see if we look at building such models, it will help us even in times of crisis later.
Thank you so much, Ekta. Vikas, when do you see the economy back in full bloom? When the real estate developers can increase rates? No, I'm kidding. I hope the rates don't go up even when the economy is back. And second, what are your top lockdown lessons?
Look, I'm not sure prices are going to go anywhere. Prices are here to stay. But I think the word which is very apt here is green shoots. It is green shoots right now. It needs some time. Once the overhang of this fear goes away, I'm already seeing the intent of human enterprise. So I see at least 6 to 9 months, but then the monsoon comes in from real estate perspective, which is again a period where slight dip comes in because of rains and all. So easily 12 months is a time which I see minimum, provided the overhang of the pandemic is being taken care of. As far as the learnings from the lockdown is concerned, I think couple of things. One, we stood by our people. We did not let anybody go, and we created all the comfort for them to be confident that they have a job and there's an organization which is backing them. That was one. Second is humility at the personal level, because one has to really now know that anything can happen at any given point. You plan for such long periods and strategy is the buzzword, but you need to be adaptable and you need to be innovative to be salient as a business.
Agility and speed matter.
Yes, and you have to adapt very quickly.
More than agility and speed, humility matters. The best laid plans can go waste. We've seen that in 7 months. There's no point planning long term because we don't know when the COVID go away. So you're right, humility and acceptance are very, very key.
Yes.
Vatsal, when will the economy be back and what are your top lockdown lessons?
My assumption being it will take around 12 months at least, because and the reason is that somewhere in the world vaccine should come in, and as soon as that happens, I think the momentum will start. People will have hope, renewed hope coming in. So I think 12 months is like a rough estimate. It can be on the higher side only, not before that for sure. And the top lockdown lesson for me has been to embrace uncertainty and to understand that we take a lot of things for granted. So I think that's something which I've learned, that we should be grateful for what we have, similar to what he said about humility. And shocks cannot just be personal, it can be towards business and community as a whole. So like embracing uncertainty and being
interconnected. So for the first time we know it deeply that we are all interconnected.
Yeah.
What happens with anywhere else can impact us too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Navneet Singh.
So for me, I guess it will take anything between 18 to 24 months, because.
And why do you say that, Nam?
Yes, sir. Because we are scared of two things. One is COVID, but second thing and more important is the income. We are scared of our income. We are scared.
Loss of income.
Yes.
Saying we are afraid of loss of income.
Loss of income.
We'll hold back. We'll save.
We'll hold back our.
Will be low.
Yes.
Hence, we as consumers we may not spend, and that may
Right.
not help the economy.
Spending capacity will be on the lesser side, and spending pattern will be on lesser side. So once spending capacity is there, but people do not want to spend, till then market will not boom, or it won't come back to you as usual. And my biggest learning from COVID or lockdown is we have to save money for tough times. All of us, let it be corporate, let it be personal, professional, we have to save money for tough times.
For the rainy day,
Yes, sir.
Indians like saving.
I
I think you're right. A lot of us are more frugal in the way we work, in the way we live, and clearly save for the rainy day.
Right.
Pulkit, you have the last word. When do you think the economy will be back, and why? And what are your top lockdown lessons?
I think my view is we should be back to normal in say around 12 months. And why do I say that is because contrary to some of the experts saying certain telling a gloomy picture in terms of the recovery, I see that we've done much better. The businesses are coming back. I think, and we as Indians are most adaptable, and hence the normal rules of normal rules of crisis don't apply to Indians as such. And I think hence we'll do much better than what's the outlook look like, and we'll be doing much better in like say 12 to 14 months. That's my outlook. And in terms of the learning, I think while a lot is being said on culture of an organization, I think the real test is when there's a certain crisis situation, when the world outside, specifically when you talk about the media industry, at the beginning of lockdown, all we heard was that, okay, this version of some traditional media shutting down and all of this thing, right? So everything outside was very gloomy. And that's when you want to double down, that's where the culture comes into the play, right? And that's what the role the culture plays in terms of the tough situation. That's what gets you out, right? It's not for the best days if you're already doing well, but when the crisis hit and you want to not to take a step back or be defensive, play more aggressive, and that's what we had to do at Khabri, go all out, right? And our team has to actually pull up the socks, adapt to the work from home environment, and go more aggressive and scale more aggressively. I think that was a very big lesson for me, and we were happy to see how we adapted thanks to our culture.
Thank you so much. Back to you, Rishabh.
Okay, we've run out of time, and as always, I'm going to encourage you that if you want to check out the latest in black rice, brown rice, muri, red lentil, red rice, sesame seeds, you need to check out Organic at organic.in. From their website, I can tell that they have a store in Bhawanipur in Kolkata. And I'm sure you can get, she mentioned B2B, so I'm sure you can find it elsewhere also. Please, if you are or know someone who could be using an improvement in their English language skills, then please check out the concept which is being put together by Blackboard Radio. Check out Khabri for audio generated knowledge and information. You have a Facebook page, and of course you can get access a lot of their content from there. And if you're a developer operating out of Mumbai, Xanadu.in, Xanadu Realty operating in Mumbai. And of course, if you're looking for a job or looking to hire in this time, Afsar and Navneet can help you out. And yes, those online degrees may help, but you might still have to give an interview over Zoom. As always, keep reading Business World online, and thank you for watching NewsX. We are all in this boat together. All our success is a success for India. We take a break. See you in a minute.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.